turn me up. I like my money like I like my green. Face card, never decline of what I mean. Act up and you gon' make me make a scene.
Thanks for joining us here at Rose Quartz Mediumship podcast, where we simply adore anything and everything healing and metaphysically based. Recently, I was working with one of my one-on-one coaching clients, and the experience was profound, and I wanted to share it with you. She is somebody who is working to break through the blocks that are preventing her from shifting into the next level of financial abundance in her life and in her business. And she recognized that she was bumping up against something in her own nervous system. And so we were doing some work around money and what it was that was feeling like a block around making more money. And she recognized that there were blocks for her around people in her reality who had significant amounts of financial abundance. And she was telling me how she recognized that there was a level of judgment that came out of her around some of these individuals. And as I was listening to her talk, it became really clear to me that the block wasn't actually around money, although she had created a story, both in her mind and in her nervous system, that tied a block to money. So we unpacked that story that was being held in her mind and her nervous system. And we're able to decouple the overcoupled resistance that she had to making more money and the story that she had about money. Where it was that she was finding judgment was that she had some people in her reality with significant financial abundance. And when she was talking to me about them, she said, "They feel fake, Erin. They are walking around with all of this financial abundance all over their physical body. And it's fake. It's fake. It's to try and make themselves feel better when they don't feel good internally." And I had her pause. And we looked at the story that she was telling. And I shifted her to some of her other people in her reality who had a significant amount of financial abundance, but she didn't feel this sensation with them. She didn't judge them. She didn't have an issue with the amount of money that they were making. And I started to point out to her that her issue was not the amount of money that they were making. That's actually not what she was judging. Where she was judging was their lack of interest in personal development. Where she was judging or finding resistance inside of herself was that these individuals who she noticed resistance around are not people who are doing personal development. The people who were making similar, if not more money, who she was not judging, it was because they were doing personal development. She didn't have that icky feeling about them if they were doing personal development. And she didn't need to know whether they were in therapy or reading books, self-help books, or podcasts, or courses, or all the various different forms of personal development, journaling, meditation, yoga. She didn't need to know whether or not they were doing it. She could feel it. They were not using material things as an attempt to make themselves feel better about themselves. They feel good about themselves. And so we started to look at the fact that anyone in her reality who feels good about themselves, she has no resistance to the amount of money that they're making. The people in her reality who have financial abundance but don't feel good about themselves and who are using material things as an attempt to make themselves feel better about themselves, that's actually where the resistance was. So she started to be able to see that her issue has nothing to do with money. She doesn't have resistance around money. She has resistance around people not doing personal development, walking around using material things to make them feel better about themselves as an attempt to make themselves feel better about themselves. And she said, Erin, I'm not proud of myself that I'm judging these people, but I'm going to be really honest with you that I am. And in that truth, in her honesty, in her ability to sit and own that truth, that place of judgment inside of herself, she was able to see that she doesn't actually have a block around money. She had overcoupled that in her nervous system, where she had decided that people who make a certain dollar amount or have a significant amount of financial abundance in their reality, she had tied that to lack of personal development. But when she was able to see that she actually didn't have this resistance or judgment, when she could clearly feel that someone had done the work, is doing the work of personal development, there was no resistance. None at all. It didn't matter how much they were making. Her resistance was when people use financial abundance and material abundance as an attempt to make themselves feel better. And so we did some decoupling work in her nervous system and in her mind, because she'd overcoupled the lack of personal development with money. Her resistance to money that was held in her nervous system and held in her mind had everything to do with resistance to the lack of personal development and nothing to do with money. And that's one of the really interesting things that you see when you look at blocks to abundance, is that the stories that we create, the blocks that we hold in our mind and in our nervous system around money, are oftentimes not about money, or they're not from the here and now. They're from experiences that we had in childhood or earlier in our life, where we created a story that we are holding in our mind and in our nervous system that is in opposition to us getting to the next level of financial abundance. So she started to really call out what it was that she was actually in resistance to, which was not money. It was not financial abundance. Her resistance is to lack of personal development, or a disinterest in personal development. And when she was able to see that, she was able to recognize that she actually doesn't have resistance to her business moving to the next level, to her making what she needs and wants to make in her reality. She is resistant to people not doing personal development. And so when we were able to really unpack that story that she was holding and realize that it had nothing to do with money, her resistance to earning more money dissipated. It went away. She was able to purge that energy out of her nervous system and out of her mind, so that she was able to start making active, aligned moves inside of her business to taking her business to the next level. And that is the power of doing somatic healing around resistance to a particular thing. In this case, we're talking about financial abundance. But we have resistance to all sorts of things. And that resistance that we hold is just a story that we're holding in our mind and in our nervous system. And it is a part of us that loves us deeply, right? So the part of her that was resistant to this financial abundance, it's because she'd overcoupled personal development and money. When she was able to decouple those, she was able to recognize that this, the part of her, this part that's judging financial abundance, which is really personal development, it didn't want her to do this. It didn't want her to be somebody who moved through this human experience without being willing to look at herself, without being willing to do deep personal development. And so this part of her that was protecting her from making more money was only trying to protect her from not growing, from not leaning into personal development. And so she was able to really recognize that this was a part of her that loved her, that didn't want to see her do this. And she was also able to recognize that the story that she was holding in her mind and in her nervous system was complete BS. It had nothing to do with money. Nothing. And so there is no resistance to making money when you can see that the story that you're holding is complete BS. And then all of a sudden, it allows you to really open up yourself energetically, emotionally, physically, to earning more money. The work that she did in that session is going to have a huge ripple effect in her life because she's no longer holding deep resistance to taking her business to the next level. And I thought it was a really beautiful example of how we can create these stories in our mind and in our nervous system that don't align with where we want to go. And it's as simple as doing the somatic work to purge those stories out of your nervous system and out of your mind. And so if you're noticing that there are things in your life, whether it's financial abundance, whether it's a relationship, whether it's more joy, whether it's more travel, whatever it is, if there is resistance or there is a block to what you consciously want in your life, leaning into a modality like somatics is going to help you to purge that story and that energy out of your nervous system and create the space for you to create a new story that's more aligned. The story that she created is that she could make as much money as she wanted because she has a deep commitment to personal development. And that's never going to change regardless of how much money she makes. And that is creating freedom of choice for her, for earning more money and aligning with more financial abundance. I really appreciate you joining us here for this podcast, and I hope that you have a beautiful morning, day, evening, or night, wherever it is that this podcast is finding you.
In his chest, ask him how it feels, just like a bullet with no vest. This lifestyle ain't meant for you, it's meant for me. This lifestyle got girlies clocking on my teeth. This lifestyle can get you far, know what I mean? This lifestyle ain't meant for you, it's meant for me.